And we have a lot to get to this morning, beginning with the latest on the attack on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband.
The suspect, David DePape, is set to appear before a judge today. Even before that arraignment, we're learning more from the FBI about his alleged plans. In an 8-page charging document, authorities say DePape admitted he wanted to, quote, hold Nancy hostage and break her kneecaps if she didn't tell him the truth. This morning, Paul Pelosi is still in intensive care, but in a statement, the Speaker's office said he's making steady progress on what will be a long recovery process. For more on all this, we are joined by NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian in Washington. Ken, good morning to you. First of all, just take us through this charging document from the FBI. What have we learned?
Good morning, Joe. Well, this document both confirmed the accounts that we had already been hearing through law enforcement sources and added a new dimension with the confession of DePape to San Francisco police officers after they detained him, which lined up exactly with what we've heard, which is that he went there with a plan to detain and harm Nancy Pelosi. He came with a backpack full of equipment. He broke into the house, according to this affidavit, using a hammer to break glass, raising questions about the lack of security at the residence of the Speaker of the House in San Francisco. Got up to the second floor, surprised Paul Pelosi in his bedroom. Paul Pelosi asked where was Nancy Pelosi. Paul Pelosi told this attacker that Nancy Pelosi was not coming home anytime soon. He said he would wait. Paul Pelosi managed to get into the bathroom and call 911. What we learned from this document is that the assailant knew he did that, but decided to remain anyway, knowing the police were on the way, because the assailant told police that he believed he was opposing tyranny and that surrender was not an option. He told police, police arrived and saw both men holding this hammer and then asked if everything was okay. The attacker apparently said everything's fine, then wrested the hammer immediately away from Paul Pelosi, struck him in the head with it. Police tackled him and arrested him. The attacker later told police that his plan was to detain Nancy Pelosi and question her, and that if she lied, which he assumed she would, he was going to smash her knees with the hammer. And he wanted that to serve as a lesson to other members of Congress because he believed that Nancy Pelosi was in charge of what he called Democratic Party lies. So clearly a political motive here, and that's why the Justice Department brought this rarely used charge that makes it a crime to assault a relative of a federal officer with the intent to intimidate or coerce that officer, and that carries a penalty of 30 years in prison. So the Justice Department brought these additional charges, even knowing that the state, through the district attorney, was going to charge DePape with very serious crimes, which they have done, 6 charges, including attempted murder. So both the federal and state governments bring the weight of justice against this defendant.
So a lot of alleged details laid out there by authorities. Looking ahead, Ken, what comes next in the investigation? What kind of punishment could DePape potentially be facing?
He's facing decades in prison on both these federal and state charges. As you mentioned, he's due to appear in court today. And there are still some unanswered questions about this. Things that blanks we'd like to fill in. Is there a 911 tape that we could hear? Because, Joe, to be frank, there are awful conspiracy theories swirling around the internet about this for which there is no evidence. And it's in the interest of the authorities to get as much information out as possible, affirmative proof that this was what they say it was, which was 2 men who didn't know each other and an attacker, a apparently deranged man who was living in a garage, allegedly taking these steps because he was in the throes of conspiracy theories and violent rhetoric.
I mean, let's talk more about that. I mean, the U.S. political landscape is really a minefield of conspiracy theories right now, including the ones surrounding this attack. So what have we learned about the suspect's beliefs? And is there now an effort to increase security for other lawmakers, especially with the midterms just a week away?
On security, there absolutely are discussions about, for example, whether family members of senior lawmakers need to be protected and whether security, writ large needs to be increased as there are these growing threats to lawmakers around election fraud and other issues. And then in terms of this suspect, a review of his social media shows a sort of a variety of beliefs all over the map, but more recently he seems to have embraced the QAnon far-right conspiracy theories that have become so ubiquitous, and that he seemed to there were even sort of Holocaust denial, pedophilia obsessions, really fringe stuff by this suspect in both blogs and social media postings, Joe.
A lot of new information this morning. Ken Delaney, thanks so much for laying it all out for us.
Well, as political leaders condemn the attack on Paul Pelosi and the conspiracy theories surrounding it, Jewish leaders are expressing concern over the rise of anti-Semitic messages on social media, which include plenty of conspiracy theories of their own. The amount of hate speech on Twitter has skyrocketed since Elon Musk's takeover, and it's making its way to the real world. NBC News correspondent Tom Costello has the latest.
For many Jewish Americans, the hate message scrolling across the Florida-Georgia football game and a building in Jacksonville were flashing warning signs. Anti-Semitism is spreading. The Kanye West tweets, the banners hanging over freeways in Florida and California. In a rare joint statement, the universities of Florida and Georgia denounced the messages, saying, "We are proud to be home to strong and thriving Jewish communities, and we stand together against hate." The New England Patriots owner even ran a PSA during Sunday's games, urging all Americans to stand up to Jewish hate, as anti-Semitic content has surged on Twitter after Elon Musk, who emphasized free speech, took full control. Use of the N-word also jumped 500%.
I think that the narrative that hate speech is free speech, it's sort of winning out right now on these platforms.
The Anti-Defamation League reports 1,431 hate incidents so far this year, more than 2,700 last year. By comparison, 10 years ago, there were 927. Senior Rabbi Sue Shankman says members of her congregation in Washington are worried.
I've had people talk about the potential of moving elsewhere where there might not be anti-Semitism outside of this country. Would they go to Canada?
Fellow Americans who tonight are hoping that their country, their neighbors, will stand by them.
I support and will protect your child, and I hope that you would do the same for mine.
The anti-Semitic messages appear to be protected by the First Amendment. The concern, the messages could turn viral and physical. Back to you.
Troubling information. Tom, thank you.
The midterms are exactly 1 week from today, and candidates in key battleground states are making their final push to get voters to the polls. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard is on the campaign trail.
In Arizona, the fight to the finish. Republican candidate for governor Kari Lake zeroing in on the economy in a state where inflation is among the highest, including gas prices averaging $4.30 a gallon.
So we'll do what we can here in Arizona to give relief.
Democrat Katie Hobbs has faced criticism for declining to debate her opponent, though blasting Lake as extreme.
This is a race not about Democrats or Republicans, but sanity over chaos.
Voters weighing in.
Why did you decide to go with Kari Lake?
The border and the economy.
Why vote for Katie Hobbs over Kari Lake?
I believe in her beliefs, and I trust her more than I do Kari Lake at this moment.
While in Georgia, a fiery debate in the governor's race. Democrat Stacey Abrams down in the polls, going after Republican Governor Brian Kemp on abortion rights.
He refuses to protect us. He refuses to defend us.
Kemp touting that Georgia was the first state to reopen after COVID.
We're one new COVID variant away from Miss Abrams wanting to lock our state down.
There are at least 9 competitive Senate showdowns that will determine the control of Congress, including Wisconsin, where Republican Senator Ron Johnson is running against Democrat Mandela Barnes.
What Democrat governance has done to the state, what it's done to our country, it's almost hard to describe.
Democrats getting last-minute help from former President Barack Obama.
Mandela's opponent has done more than just about anybody in Congress to spread conspiracy theories about the 2020 election.
This is go time for these campaigns in what are tight statewide races around the country. And that's why here in this final week, turnout and the effort to get voters to show up in these final 7 days is more crucial than ever.
All right, Vaughn, thank you so much. And make sure to tune in tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on NBC News Now for a Meet the Press election special with Chuck Todd and Kristen Welker. They'll break down the key races, what's at stake, with live reports from all the big election night battlegrounds.
Some breaking news to get to now from overnight. As many as 14 people, including children, were injured in a mass shooting in Chicago. This happened in a neighborhood called Garfield Park. People were holding a vigil there at the time, and police say it appears to have been a drive-by shooting. 3 children were among those shot, one of them as young as 3 years old. In that chaos, one person was also injured when they were hit by a car. Police say the investigation is still ongoing.
We have breaking news this morning from Pfizer. The pharmaceutical company has released data from its trials for a potential maternal vaccine against the common respiratory virus, RSV. That's a vaccine given during pregnancy. Pfizer says the vaccine was 81% effective against severe illness in the first 90 days of a newborn's life. That number then drops to about 69% during the first 6 months of a child's life. Pfizer says the vaccines also pose no safety concerns during these trials and it plans to submit the first regulatory application by the end of the year. If approved, it would be the first maternal vaccine on the market. Let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel to help walk us through this breaking news. Doctor, good to have you with us. I mean, how much of a game changer could this be? We've been talking so much about RSV, and how is this vaccine able to help babies really from the moment that they're born?
Joe, this is a huge game changer. We do not have a vaccine for RSV for anybody, including infants. And it's incredibly important to administer it early, which is why this vaccine is administered during pregnancy, so that there's time for the mother to develop antibodies that can be passed on to the infant so that it can be the most effective the moment the baby is born. And that's because we see RSV severely affecting infants in that 0 to kind of 12-month time frame, Joe. It also affects older adults, and Pfizer has had a readout on the same vaccine for older adults. So this is good news all around, but especially for young children as we're filling up pediatric hospitals around the country right now.
Yeah, doctor, I mean, remind us of how serious of an illness RSV can be for babies. What happens inside the respiratory system and why are newborns so vulnerable?
Yeah, so this can be a very mild cold in many people. And in fact, the majority of RSV cases we see are nothing more than what feels like a nuisance, Joe. So a cold that lasts for many days. But in younger children and especially older adults, we can see it attack the very small airways, so at the tippy ends of the lungs, and it can cause an inflammation that's also called bronchiolitis, and it's a very common inflammation in RSV infections that land babies in the hospital, especially if you have chronic conditions. And again, remember, this is something that you can't just take care of at home. So you do need to bring the baby into the hospital where they often need assistance to help them breathe. This can also put them at risk for other diseases down the line. So we can prevent this. This is just a huge game changer. On average, we can see over 60,000 hospitalizations just in younger children alone. Combine that with older adults, we're talking hundreds of thousands of hospitalizations we might be able to prevent.
That's a huge number right there. And doctor, the company here is Pfizer. We know Pfizer has been at the forefront of creating the COVID vaccine series, from those initial 2 doses to the boosters. Has the technology used in that vaccine played any role in this one here?
Not necessarily the technology, but the insights. And just to build, this has been research that was first developed and helped funded by the NIH. So you see some themes here, right? We have a public investment, the private sector partners with the public investment, and then really helps it to take off. What is common about the COVID and RSV vaccines is that these are both vaccines that use a bivalent, the booster, which uses 2 types of COVID strains, and the RSV vaccine, also bivalent, using 2 subunits of the RSV vaccine. Both vaccines are different technologies, but develop antibodies against a protein that helps the RSV virus attach into the body and cause an infection, just like with the COVID vaccine, helping to develop antibodies against that spike protein to prevent it from attaching. So a lot that we can learn on and lean on, and a lot that we have to thank for science and research all around.
A useful science lesson there from Dr. Kavita Patel. Doctor, as always, thank you so much for breaking it down. We appreciate it.
All right, time for some more science now. Check with your Morning News Now weather.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us. It's November. We're here.
Yeah, I can't believe it. It went so fast, but it feels like September.
It does.
So that's the good news, if you like warm weather. We're looking at temperatures well above normal in most of the nation, from the Intermountain West all the way through the plains into the upper Midwest and Northeast, New England, and even into the Southeast. We're really warm as well. It's a small part of the country where we're cooler than average, and we're actually seeing some snow in that part of the country. So 43 states above average highs today. You add on the people, we're looking at 238 million people seeing above average highs, especially in the northern plains into the upper Midwest. We're talking record-breaking temperatures. So where you see these dots, these red dots are correlating to tie or record-breaking temperatures or tying them, and then the yellow dots are within 3 degrees of the record. So many records at risk today. Widespread warmth from the northern plains into the east. We're looking at temperatures into the 70s, 25 degrees above normal for this time of year. Bismarck, 71 degrees. That's 23 degrees above average. 75 in Sioux, City, Kansas City, 77 degrees. We're looking at Chicago, 68 degrees, and St. Louis, 75. We're going to hold on to that warmth tomorrow, so more record warmth as we go throughout Wednesday. Temperatures into the 70s. Bismarck, 75. Look at that, 28 degrees above what is typical for this time of year. 77 in Omaha, 60s in Indianapolis, near 70 degrees, though. And we're looking near the 60-degree mark in Burlington, 68 degrees in New York City. But we hold on to that warmth into the weekend. So if you're looking for a nice, mild weekend, you're going to have it in Philadelphia. 73 degrees on Saturday, near 80 degrees in Nashville, 77 Friday, 78 on Saturday. And same story in Cincinnati, near 80 degrees both Saturday and also on Sunday. Now, we do have a big difference in the West, especially the Pacific Northwest. We have a cold front that's moving onshore. That's bringing precipitation once again. It's been unsettled for a week and a half straight. We're seeing that once again today. This storm system will impact this part of the area tomorrow into Wednesday. So we're looking at lower elevation rain where you see these brighter colors, the yellows, the reds, the oranges. That's where we're seeing the heaviest rainfall. But we're seeing a mix, too. So we're seeing the pink and the purple. That's where we're seeing sleet and some freezing rain. We're also seeing some snow. We could see up to 14 inches of snow in the highest elevations in portions of the Sierra, also the Cascades, into the Rockies. This is a setup. Area low pressure, cold front moving onshore. It's bringing that rain. It's bringing the snow. It's bringing really gusty winds, too. So winds gusting up to 50 miles per hour. That's going to reduce visibilities in many spots. We're looking at winds, especially along the coast. And then as we go throughout tomorrow, it kind of moves a little bit inland, a little bit to the south as well. So snow spreading into the Great Basin, also the Rockies. Showers will linger from Washington to California. That's good news. We need some rain there. So that's welcome rain as we head towards Wednesday. Winter alerts where you see the white, that's your winter weather advisory. The pink is a winter storm warning. That means the snow is falling right now. We're looking at reduced visibility. We're looking at slick travel in many spots, especially with that wind blowing. And take a look at some of these snowfall totals. It's widespread, and where you see these blues and purples, we're looking at the highest amounts, especially pink, 12 inches or higher. So portions of Utah, we're seeing that. Also portions of Wyoming. Low-level elevation rainfall, we're looking at heavy rain throughout northern California, also portions into the Intermountain West. So depending on where you are, you could see some heavy rain, and that's going to cause some flash flooding in some spots. Out ahead of this front, we're looking at really gusty winds. Winds could gust up to 50 miles per hour. Along with that low humidity, we're looking at a fire danger, so elevated fire danger out ahead of this front. Back to you guys.
All right, Michelle, thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.